Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Grab something solid because today I'm about to
release the Kraken!
To be honest, I'm one of about 14 watch YouTubers that will have released their own personal Krakens over the last couple of weeks because Phoibos have just released a new dive watch called the Kraken, and it's just too tempting to resist. Now before we go on, you saw the pop-up I'm sure. This video is sponsored by Phoibos. They sent me the watch for free, and in addition I'm a Phoibos affiliate. What that means is I'll leave a link and a discount code JOMWA10 in the description of the video. If you use that code you can get 10% off this or anything else from the Phoibos.com international website. Now that means it's in my interest if you all rush out and buy 5 of these each. If you think therefore that my words cannot be trusted, just skip to the next video, or why don't you turn the sound down, look at the pretty pictures and make up your own mind. If however you still credit me with a fair degree of objectivity, then watch on. Phoibos designs tend to be a little bit hit or miss, and indeed there's going to be a fair degree of subjectivity involved in whether or not you find this one attractive or not. What I can say though is it's very, very well made. If you've been waiting for the next batch of Zelos Swordfish 42mm stainless steel, or you are number 2568 in line for a new Helm, you could do a lot worse than having a look at one of these Phoibos Krakens. It's a really solid offering. Why don't we flip the camera and do just that? Why hello there. I haven't seen Phoibos' premium travel pouchy packaging in some time. They introduced this one about 3 years ago from memory to any of their offerings at $350 US plus, which gives you an indication of where this Kraken is priced. And indeed this one is priced at $450 US before discounts. There's a 10% discount code as mentioned. You don't have to use mine, you can use someone else's, or you can pay full price. Assuming you want a discount, $405 after discount, including free shipping with a 2-year international warranty. Now I went for this green one, I was given a choice. There's also a blue one, not really my style. Champagne, which actually looks quite interesting in combination with that stainless steel bezel. There's a plain black one, which is as always the sensible choice, and it took every fibre of my being not to ask for the black and gold because I have to take a break from black and gold in 2022. And there it is, the Kraken has been released. They have gone all in really on this kind of mythical sea creature thing, particularly with this bracelet, arguably the most interesting individual element of the watch. Kind of snake skin here, there's a rather entertaining case back, and yeah, the whole watch is kind of full on styling. Full on sizing as well, they call it a 41, I measure it at 42mm in diameter. They claim a 42mm bezel but a 41mm case. I don't see any difference between the case and the bezel at all there. Not thick though. 12.8mm thanks to this one having a Miyota 9015 movement. Bang on 50mm lug tip to lug tip, 22mm lug width. There is some taper on this snakeskin bracelet, tapers from 22 down to 20, back up to 22 at the clasp, and sized up for my 7-inch wrist, 185 grams. Though I must say on wrist, I think thanks partly to that large clasp, doesn't wear particularly heavy. You know, it's relatively thin and relatively well balanced because of that big clasp. 316L stainless steel case, crown, stainless steel bezel, and stainless steel bezel insert. Definitely another of the highlights of this one. Solid bracelet, solid end links. Now these are fully articulated, let me show you. Now because of the way the snake's scales, the Kraken's scales if you will, all interact and fit in with each other, it's not that dynamic on wrist, but it is a 5-link effectively. It's a styled jubilee to look like snakeskin. The bracelet is all brushed, the whole watch is pretty much all brushed, there is barely a polished surface anywhere on this one, and it has one of those large milled clasps, milled lower. I think that is a milled upper, it's certainly thick enough to be milled. Etched, deep etched there with the Phoibos octopus, the Phoibos logo on the bottom, and it is one of those with the built-in ratcheting divers extension and micro adjust. Now 3 holes of micro adjust, but I will come back to that later on as well. Case finish mostly brushed, at least the upper surfaces are brushed anyway. Semi-guarded crown, and it has that Phoibos logo, the King Octopus on the end there. I'll throw in a little bit of macro with the octopus on the crown here. Really nice touch. One of these kind of touches that you generally only get from micro brands, and it is a proper embossed octopus on there as well, not just printed on either. Now the 9 o'clock side of the case, not as interesting as the other, just a plain vertical brush here, nice and fine and nice and smooth to the touch. There is some high polish. There's a high polish undercut on both sides of the case. That not only makes the case look a little bit slimmer, but it will also help with long-term comfort as well. Very distinct cutouts on that bezel today. Nicely machined and again smooth to the touch. Crown is obviously screwed down, giving this watch a claimed 300 meters of water resistance. And sapphire crystal. Now double dome sapphire crystal. I had to check though. Have a look. It is just the slightest dome. Just barely not flat actually, with 3 layers of anti-reflective undercoating. Nice piece of glass actually. It avoids the bounce back you get from dead flat sapphire, but it also avoids all the distortion you get from a more extreme double dome. And that is a 120 click unidirectional rotating bezel. Now I find it best to grip from the 12 and the 6 with this one. Very, very satisfying. And everything lines up. Like I said in the intro, I cannot fault the build quality of this for $400. And that is not a cheap looking case back either, though I suspect opinion may be divided in the comment section today as to whether the grinning Kraken dragging a container ship underwater after dark is comedic or kitsch. Like I said, I will leave that one up to you. I look forward to reading your opinions. And lurking behind that Kraken, as mentioned, is a Miyota 9015 Japanese-made 24 joule high beat 28,800 vibrations per hour automatic. Now the Miyota only winds in one direction, so you do tend to get a lot of spin with this one. I couldn't feel that on wrist because it is a solid chunky watch at 180 grams, but I could just hear it a little bit. It's something you either accept with a Miyota or you avoid with a Miyota. That is up to you. Stated tolerances of -15 to +25. This one running a little slow at -9. Looks fairly healthy though. Decent amplitude, not too much beat error. So then let's take this one outside and have a look at it under the macro lens. And what do we see? Well, the first thing we see, I think anyway, is a very pronounced circular brushing metallic effect to the dial. Very strong sunburst on that one, as you'll see when I move it around a bit later on. I think the next thing you see is those prominent indices, prominent applied indices, quite Seiko monsterish because they are all sharp like the Kraken's teeth, one would imagine. We have segmented pentagonal indices, large ones at the 12, the 6 and the 9, and smaller horizontally segmented pentagonal indices everywhere else. Those are the ones with the sharp teeth. Now have a look at the index at the 3 o'clock. We've got a colour match date wheel there with a printed gold frame around it. I'm not sure whether they would have been better going for something a little larger there to balance it out, particularly after dark. But you know, that small square index isn't actually square. It's trapezoidal like every other index on the dial. Again, I think a nice touch there. Minute track printed in gold around the outer edge in keeping with this whole green and gold theme. Phoibos logo, the octopus again printed above the pinion, and automatic in red, 300 meters in gold printed beneath it. So red obviously being the other color they've used to tie this one together. We've got that vintage style truncated triangle on the bezel insert at 12 there, red tip to the second hand, and red automatic. There is a little bit more red, but I haven't shown you it in this particular shot. I will show you it a bit later on. And if you zoom in under this as close as I can go, it looks fantastic. That circular effect of the dial itself and the longitudinal brushing of the hands and the indices, no rough edges, no dust, no rubbish. I say it again, I can't fault how well this watch is made. And that stainless steel bezel insert looks fantastic. I'm definitely going through a stainless steel bezel insert phase myself with my SPB 185 Seiko purchase not too many months ago. It's definitely a look that I think is in at the moment, and this is a nice one. And the lume is excellent as well. You would expect that given the size of those indices, particularly the ones at the 12, the 3 and the 9. But you see what I mean now? Maybe a slightly bigger index at 3 would have helped balance this one out after dark. No complaints about the quality or the longevity though. 15 layers of BGW9 and C3, hence that two-tone effect. If I crank the speed up, it fades quite evenly across the board, but the hands still remain nice and bright at the end of the 20 minutes. Good job on the Lume. And on wrist, you definitely know it's there, but that's probably more due to the colour and the whole design of the thing rather than the weight. Look, I'm not saying that it disappears on wrist, it just carries its weight very well. Big chunky clasp definitely helps to balance out the head of the watch, but the head of the watch is particularly slim, and remember those little high polish undercuts, meaning it wears pretty comfortably on me. Now, those are inverted female style mid links of the end link there, but as I said, there's not a huge amount of articulation there, so don't expect it to have the same effect as if they were traditional oyster style links, but it does conform rather well. 50mm lug to lug, not too bad. I wouldn't suggest this one if you were less than about 6.5 inch wrist though, it might end up overhanging slightly. Overhead legibility, big chunky watch, big dial, big chunky handset, big chunky indices, no problems at all. So back outside in natural light, you can see what I was saying earlier on about the slight dome from the sapphire really helping, and also that prominent sunburst from that circular brush dial. Now have a look at the date window here. It was gold earlier on, it's red. They've gone for a bi-colour odds and evens date wheel configuration here. I will talk about that in a second or two. On wrist, that snakeskin scale bracelet really is a little bit different from anything else I have reviewed. I think it goes really well with that stainless steel bezel. The whole thing is quite full on though, let's not kid ourselves. Very much Zelos, very much Helm, the two watches that I referred to in the introduction. And the pocket shot to finish, thankfully I'm all dressed in black today because I think there's quite enough happening on my wrist that I don't need to wear a pair of radical shorts. Alright then, on to the moans and niggles section. The looks, subjective. You know already whether you like this kind of full-on styling or not. Plenty of people do though, hence the number of Zelos models that sell out within seconds, and Phoibos have been doing rather well for themselves over the last 5 years, coming up with watches just like this. The date wheel. Now, I mentioned it, but here it is demonstrated. They've gone for an alternating bi-coloured date wheel. So, the 7 is gold, the 8 is red, the 9 is gold, the 10 is red, the 11 is gold, the 12 is red. Only problem is, the 13 is legible, 14 isn't, 15 is legible, 16 isn't, etc, etc. You get the idea. I've said this before as well, there's usually two reasons why something hasn't been done before, and that's either nobody's ever thought of it before, or they have and it doesn't really work. I get what they were doing here. They were adding another interesting visual element and they were toning in that red, 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 red. I like the theory, I just don't think it works in practice. Maybe a different pair of colours would have worked, but here it just doesn't. The bracelet is a good one, screw links and very easy to operate, and you do get that kind of snaky articulation which is really nice. I'm not a fan of these clasps though, to be honest. I think they are a little bit big, a little bit bulky, and it's 3 holes of micro adjust here. Now you're thinking that's okay, particularly because these are small links. However, you can in practice only use the first 2, meaning you've only got 1 hole of micro adjust that way. No problem, that's what this is for. Well, it's not really what this is for. This is a diver's extension, a ratcheting diver's extension, so that you can put the watch over a wetsuit. If you are obliged therefore to use it as a micro adjust, you expose all of these sharp edges, extra rattle and flex, and it doesn't look good, I don't think. I prefer a regular clasp to these styles. Again, kind of subjective. You already know whether you like this or not. And my final niggle, again this is subjective, this is me trying to work out what I would have preferred from this design overall. Those lugs, they've gone for those twisting lugs a la Omega Seamaster, Aquaterra, etc, etc. And I think in some ways they had to because of those curved end links, because of that overtly curved bracelet. But there are no curves elsewhere on the dial and hands. I wonder if they would have been better going for a more samurai style angular lug set here, taking that hit in the way that the lugs integrated with the bracelet, but meaning that the head of the watch, particularly those semi-guarded crowns, looked better in relation to the lugs. When I look at the watch from the top down, I can't help but feel that they didn't quite get the link between the curvy bracelet and the angled dial and handset quite right. I would have preferred a more angled lug here. But that's just me. Leave me a comment. Do you think this is the right look, or do you think that they should have gone for something more angled like those crown guards as well? But overall, I feel a pretty solid offering, this one from Phoibos. Certainly not a miss like some of their others have been in the past. In my opinion, the Great Wall and the Sentinel were not really my cup of tea. That's not to say though that there aren't a couple of design elements here that I think are interesting, but perhaps needed a little bit more refinement and perhaps warrant a little bit more refinement. Who knows, maybe we'll get a Kraken V2 at some stage in the future. So there you have it. If you fancy releasing your personal Kraken, don't forget the discount code in the description of the video. If you didn't fancy this one, why not check out reviews of the two watches that I mentioned in the intro, Zelos Swordfish or the Helm, any of the Helms, particularly the Vanuatu. Thanks for watching, I'll see you soon.